Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have LeddarTech. It's an automotive software company that provides a crucial piece of the software stack for advanced driver assistance systems and autonomous driving applications. Their AI-based low-level fusion and perception software provides critical information about the surroundings of the vehicle and enables safety features such as collision avoidance, emerging braking or steering, as well as driver assistance for tasks like parking, adaptive cruise control, and lane keeping assistance. With us today from LeddarTech to tell you more about the company is President and CEO Frantz Saintellemy. Frantz brings over 25 years of experience in the electronics and automotive sectors, specializing in automotive technology, autonomous driving, AI, IoT, and automation. And Frantz is renowned for his technical expertise with numerous patents and innovations to his credit. Frantz holds electrical and computer engineering, business and marketing degrees, is a MIT Sloan Engineering Fellows Program on Innovations and Global Leadership graduate, and holds an MBA from McGill and HEC Montreal. So happy to have you on our conference today. Welcome, Frantz.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for having me today. I'm quite delighted to be at this Emerging Growth Conference. So today, my presentation will be focused on, what's happening in the industry, what problems are happening, and growth opportunities in the automotive industry, and how LeddarTech plays an essential role in the next wave of growth of the automotive industry. So with that, I'm gonna jump right in, and maybe we come back for some questions.
Perfect. Jump on in. The floor is yours.
Super. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Again, thank you for having me today. LeddarTech, for those of you who are not familiar with LeddarTech, we are a software pure play company founded in 2007. We recently listed on the NASDAQ just at the end of last year, trading under the ticker LDTC. As a company, we're 160 employees worldwide, mostly in engineering and product management capacities, with 3 major R&D centers, one in Montreal, Quebec City in Canada, and another one in Tel Aviv. We have customer support across the globe, wherever automotive OEMs are located or tier 1s are located. We are, a company quite mature in terms of our development and product approach. We have 4 software products that are available today, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's based around a single architecture that we call the LeddarVision software stack that really enables entry to really surround premium ADAS applications. The LeddarVision is really at the center of the next generation of ADAS and autonomous driving growth, and that's supported by a strong patent portfolio, which we believe that is foundational for the industry. If you believe that the automotive is becoming more and more software enabled, it's becoming more and more connected, as well as more sophisticated in terms of its capacity to navigate itself in the road, but also to navigate safely, well, LeddarTech is very well positioned to really benefit from that, given our strong patent portfolio. We also have, we have a very solid management team that is got many industry experience, many years of experience with public company experience, as well as scaling organizations, and that is supported by a really, really strong board of directors with experts who really believe in the future of LeddarTech, but also who are committed to the success of the company. So LeddarTech, the way to think about LeddarTech is we play in a very large and fast-growing market that's the advanced driver assistance, as well as the autonomous driving in the future. We develop disruptive software that fuses different sensing modalities and that applies artificial intelligence to really derive, quality information from the road that allows a safe driving experience. And this is fundamental to the next wave of industry growth. We are one of the earliest developers of such technologies. AI software is relatively new. Software alone as a standalone product is brand new. And AI in the automotive space is quite new, is disruptive. And we're one of the only companies in the industry that are capable of delivering this. And that's because we have a world-class team, and we think that we are well positioned for the next wave of growth. So with that, you know a little bit more about LeddarTech, but what are the problems that we are solving? We feel that we solve fundamental industry problems that will be there for really decades to come. When you look at the automotive industry, it's growing, with demand from regulators to have more safety, where regulators are now mandating that car manufacturers make safety a basic product, just like your airbag, just like a seatbelt. Now, the driver assistance systems, superior driver assistance systems that function well, reliably in any road, in any condition, are becoming mandated by regulatory. On the other side, consumers are demanding more convenience. They want more safety. They want more features that are more resembling to what they can get in other subsegments in other markets. And they want the car to be a reflection of their household, their normal consumer behaviors. So consumers are ready to adopt more safety. They're also ready to adopt more advanced driver systems. This really creates an opportunity where automakers are seeking a new approach to meet not only the regulatory demand, but also consumers wanting more features, more functionality, and more convenience. So what does this mean in terms of LeddarTech? So think about this. Current systems today are ill-equipped or incapable of addressing regulatory demands at scale, but also doing that cost-efficient. Even more important, consumers want those functionalities, but they're not prepared to pay significant more dollars than they're paying today. So they want safety as basis, but they also want convenience features that they can pay at a reasonable price to get the upgrades for. The auto industry, there's a case today with Tesla, BYD, and some of the software ready, like NIO, for example, in China, software ready OEMs are demonstrating that software actually is a game changer, and they can make money and they can grow, but also they have significant demand from the consumers because consumers value those types of features and functionalities. Hardware only approach, really the OEMs are seeking, in hardware agnostic, they want to source the software independently from the hardware, creating a scenario where they can actually develop a platform architecture 3 years down the road through software, upgrade, and continue to upgrade on a yearly basis, but also release new features on a much accelerated cadence. Mobileye today is the dominant player in the market, but they are vision primarily, and it's a black box, and OEMs are looking for alternatives. The automotive industry wants to have multi-sourcing strategy, and a software approach really allows them to do that. And then the last thing is the OEMs are supported by their subcontractors, the tier ones and the tier two suppliers, and they are struggling to really scale up their capabilities in software because software is so broad. You have software for connectivity, software for EV, software for engine management, for engine control, for consumer interaction, for infotainment, for navigation. And now you need software for safety and for autonomous driving. And AI is going to play a major role in that scale. And now no single OEM or tier one or even a tier two can do everything themselves. So they're looking for specialist companies like us to deliver world-class software that can allow them to build their applications or build the vehicle state of the art. So with that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the LeddarVision architecture. The LeddarVision architecture is, we think, well ahead of the industry. The current model in the industry is you have what we call object level fusion. So what that means is, I talked about Mobileye being the market leader in this space. Mobileye comes with a camera-centric approach, and this vision architecture comes with its own software, its own intelligence. And then they build an application based on that. This works when you have warning systems like single camera systems, where for forward-looking, adaptive cruise control or lane keep assist. But these systems are susceptible to all kinds of challenges. And then if you have to add radar, that's another sensor system with its own intelligence, its own software. So again, radar improves the performance on its own. It's not enough. So combining both is necessary to have a much safer systems. And then you can think about other types of sensors like ultrasonic, like LiDAR. What I'm trying to get to is these systems, the more you have more regulation, which demands functionality that works safely and that are fail-safe, you need to have redundancy, you need to have more sensors. More sensors means more computing power. More computing power means more complexity in the overall system cost. And our architecture, based on what we call low-level fusion, AI-based low-level fusion, we take the simplest of sensor. We take the raw output out of the camera, raw output out of the radar, out of the ultrasonic sensor, out of the LiDAR, any of sensor configuration. We fuse that, and then we process AI on the fused model. That's more efficient. It's more lean. You don't have multiple processors cascading. You don't have multiple ECUs cascading. It's a much more elegant architecture, and it's more robust. And also, as you now, consumers are demanding for upgradability, for subscription models, you can see that on an object level fusion, the software starts to the hardware. You change anything on the hardware, the software has to be revalidated or changed or recoded altogether. In a hardware abstracted software model, well, you change the sensor or the hardware configuration, the software can be adapted much easier, and it can be done really fast. So we believe this is a much more scalable approach, but most important, it's higher performance and lower cost. How do we do that? In a nutshell, we have different ways of addressing this, but think about the LeddarTech vision as an AI-based fused model, a 3D standard model of the environment. So think about, we take all the outputs of all the data from the different sensor types, we fuse, we apply AI, we apply proprietary software, we recreate a standardized 3D model of the architecture that is one software stack. And then we apply intelligence on top of that to derive driving decisions. And so therefore, we have a much more comprehensive, more complete, because that environmental model or the 3D model combines the best of all the sensor capabilities into that one robust model. And then we recreate this environment pixel by pixel, which creates a very rich, dense environmental model. And from there, we build the applications. Once you have that environmental model, if you have a forward-facing system like this entry model at the bottom, you have a very low-cost solution, because you can do that with cheap sensors, a very cheap camera, and a very low-cost short-range radars. The same software then can be upgraded. You add more sensors. Same software stack now can be upgraded to a higher version of this forward-looking system, where now you can have what we call a more surround, a mid version. Then if you add more sensor, again, the same software stack can be upgraded to a surround system, where you have a 360 view of the environment. You can enable premium applications such as traffic jam pilot or highway pilots, for example. And then same architecture will also include, if you get the surround, you get the parking, that's also included, or you can also get the parking as a separate. So it's one environmental model, one software stack, multiple end applications that are already ported to processor architectures like Texas Instruments or to low-cost ECU systems that we are working with different partners today. The advantage in doing such an architecture is now you can do things that the industry has thought impossible. So today, the market leader, Mobileye, offers a surround system, which they call the Supervision. That's a combination of 11 cameras and 5 radars. So that's 7 8-megapixel cameras with 4 3-megapixel surround and rear cameras. It's a super complex system that only Mobileye can actually make modifications to. Even more, it's a super costly. Just the cost of the sensors alone is well over $400. And these are just cameras and radars. We're not talking about LiDARs or anything else there. The same application to do a highway pilot or a city pilot, for example, LeddarTech needs 5 cameras, 3-megapixel cameras, and 5 radars. One long range radars, 4 short range surround radars. Compared to this Mobileye system, this is roughly about half of the sensor cost. And I'm not talking here about additional costs associated with cost of processing, with cost of cabling and memory, and all the unnecessary load that's going to be needed in terms of cooling and so forth. So just at the sensor cost alone, you can see that with same application, we can execute that at roughly half the cost of the hardware. This technology is quoted by the industry leaders as foundational or fundamental IP. We have this IP portfolio predates some of the most famous companies. In fact, we have some of these IP that predates the existence of some of these companies altogether. And so we have a patent portfolio that covers from signal acquisition to signal processing to fusion and perception applied in automotive or transportation or other industrial applications. So we not only do the fusion and perception well, but the signal processing is extremely important. That's one of the reasons why we're able to embed this software into very low-cost processors that none of the industry can actually do. And so this is a very, very powerful tool, and that's all supported by over a decade of IP and portfolio development. We believe that this is a great market opportunity, and we are at the beginning, just at the beginning of a massive growth curve, and we feel that we are extremely well positioned to benefit from the industry growth and the transition, the evolution that's going on in the automotive industry. Car industry is becoming more software ready. Large established and growing OEMs or even new players, EV players or new emerging companies are looking for software. They need lots and lots of software. And this market that we play in, it's predicted that the ADAS and AD software market will be a $42 billion market by 2032. And so this gives us a very large addressable market for us. We are one of the earliest providers for this segment, and we're also one of the only providers in this industry. And we also believe that there are very few companies that can actually develop AI-based software that can be integrated into embedded low-cost processors in the automotive space. So this really gives us quite a lot of traction. So we have many, many interactions with different customers across the globe in pretty much all of the automotive jurisdictions that you can think of. The automotive industry works in long design cycles. So a new platform for the car industry is typically a 5-year design cycle with a facelift or an upgrade that's typically a 3-year cycle. We have been talking to some of these OEMs and tier ones for well over 2-3 years in some cases. Today we have one committed customer called Ficosa. They are one of the market leaders in camera-based systems for parking applications, and they're expanding into the ADAS space. So we are working hand in hand with them on parking, but we're also working on ADAS. We've actually worked on 2 RFIs, major RFIs together, and we're working on a large one to right now as we speak. So we feel that we are in a very good position to really benefit from the next wave of the industry growth. So as you can see, China is also a different design cycle. China is much faster. They're willing to be more adventurous in terms of integrating technologies. And as we gain over the next year or so, as we develop more of these customers, we believe that one or several of them will convert into wins and obviously production revenue. And as we get into revenue, we have multiple revenue streams. One is, as we engage with customers, we typically engage in engineering services, so we charge them NRE. This is quite interesting. And then as they sign on the project, they get a development license fee. And then as they go in production, we get production royalties. We get a dollars per vehicles, and these can be tens of dollars per vehicle. And then there's a number of them that will continuously want to have state-of-the-art software, so maintenance and updates. And then eventually, we're going to collect so much data that we believe that data could become a very interesting monetization opportunity. So as I talked about earlier, this is a large and fast-growing market. Software, there are very few companies that have software capabilities, especially AI-based software, with as the next disruption in the automotive industry. LeddarTech is one of the early companies in this space. We have some of the broadest IP portfolio, and we believe that that expertise is quite important. We are an early mover in the market. We think that we have multiple years ahead of the industry. Pure play software in the automotive industry is rare. It's high margin. We think that we don't need a lot. We only need one to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. We think that we have one of the best team, if not the best team in the world, the most concentrated cluster of deep learning, machine learning, AI, computer vision specialists in the world. And that positions us very well for the next wave of growth. With that, Hannah, we'll open it up for some questions.
Great job, Frantz. We do have some questions for you. First of all, talk a little bit about what's happening in the ADAS market and what problem LeddarTech is trying to solve.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the car manufacturers are looking to get products in the market much sooner at a faster cadence than they've been doing before, and they want to integrate more software. The problem today is everything is hardware. Software is supporting the hardware, and so there's no real software products, and so a new architecture is needed. And Tesla has demonstrated that when you have a software-ready architecture, you can actually do millions of vehicle recalls, or you can add new functionalities to the existing vehicles by providing software updates. And to do that, the traditional OEMs and the tier ones and the new EV players are really needing software. And also, they also need to respond to regulatory demands, to consumer demands for more safety and more convenience functionalities. And that also means more sensors are going to be needed in the car. As more sensors get implemented, more complex systems, the cost explodes. That's a real problem. And the performance degrades as well. LeddarTech delivers software that takes the cheapest sensors out there, lowest cost, augments, in some cases, doubling the performance of these hardware, and allow the OEM or the tier one to source the hardware and the software independently while significantly improving the performance, meeting regulatory demand for safety and consumer demands for more convenience, valuable features. So we think that we're one of the only companies today that are capable of doing that with products available.
And what is driving this expected growth in the market for these solutions you talk about?
A number of things. There's a number of changes happening in the automotive industry. The first one is this electrification. And with electrification means more changes. You can't do things like you used to do before. Real estate becomes an issue, as well as power becomes an issue. So you need more efficient systems, and you need systems that take less compute power. The jargon in the industry is more compute efficiency. So for example, comparable applications for a level 2 basic ADAS system, most system designs today, you need anywhere from 20 to 30 TOPS of performance. So that's processor, that's tera operating per second. So really high-end processors for basic safety application. We can do that with 8 TOPS. So it's 3 times less compute power. And this translates into more range. This translates into higher performance, but also capability of adding new features, more margin for growth in the future. And as you get into even higher complexity, high-end vehicles where you have lots and lots of performance, you're talking about hundreds of TOPS. And we can do that with 30 or 40 TOPS. And so this allows us to really solve a very massive problem for the industry that's far beyond safety and convenience. It's also, survivability for some of these battery-enabled cars.
Let's talk about China. We have to. The elephant in the room. What do you see happening in the China market? Is China behind or ahead of the rest of the world concerning this?
That's interesting. For the most part, when we think of China, we think they're copycats, they're fast followers. When it comes to EV and ADAS, in fact, they're catching up. EV and AD, I should say. They're catching up and actually, in some cases, surpassing European and North American car makers. So you take a look at EVs, for example. The largest EV company today is not Tesla, it's BYD. In batteries, they have by far the most installed infrastructure for batteries and for charging. When it comes to AD, they're more adventurous. They are willing to put in functionality and test as they go and drive. So for software-defined vehicles, actually, NIO and BYD have had software-defined vehicles on the road for at least 2 years. This is really at a much faster clip. And these companies, they're now have tested a lot of functionalities in China, and it's really accelerating the adoption of new technology. So for LeddarTech, for example, we have customers that want to go to production with our software in 2 years. Where in Europe, it's typically 5 years. And so the cadence is much faster, and they're less risk averse. They're willing to accelerate the qualification process and the qualification time. With AI, it makes so much sense, Anna, because the reality is with AI, the more you drive, the more miles you collect, the more sophisticated the software becomes. So you can do that in trial, or you can do that open air. And the Chinese have decided they would do that in open air, just like Tesla has done.
Well, can you explain, if you're selling directly with the automotive companies, how exactly does that work?
Well, we have a different path to market. One path is when OEMs are defining their next architecture, the next vehicle platform, we work directly with them together with the SoC or the processor provider. So that would be companies like NVIDIA, Qualcomm, or Texas Instruments, or ARM. We are working today as we have public partnerships with ARM, which is one of the leading AI core manufacturers in the world, if not the leader. We're their software partner, and we're working as well with TI. So these architectures are really working early on in advanced engineering innovation projects with the OEMs. But then there are projects which are more what I would call updates and upgrades, or facelifts, as they call them. These are shorter cycle. They typically would be working with a tier one. So they would specify it. We'd still work with the OEM, but they would specify with a tier one what the architecture would look like. And then they would go into a bidding scenario. And we would work with the tier one on the integration. And then we work proactively with SoC providers. So for example, in China, we have an announced partnership with a company called Black Sesame. They're one of the top 3 SoC providers, AI SoC providers in China. We also have an agreement in place. It's not public yet, but with another well-known Chinese provider. That's addressing the Chinese ecosystem, and that's really allowing us to target simultaneously multiple customers by leveraging their existing sales force and their existing domain expertise. And we do that with Texas Instrument as well, with North American and European, as well as some Asian customers. These SoC partnerships are really important because software is now being defined early on together, hand in hand with the SoC. The last partnership that we've announced is a major one, is ARM. It's the first time in ARM's history that they invest in such a software development suite. And so we have a collaboration agreement in place with them where we are jointly targeting OEMs and tier ones, and they're leveraging our software capabilities to demonstrate the capabilities of their SoC early in the design cycle. We think this is breakthrough, and we think this is going to have a major impact for years to come.
So are you currently in discussions with potential customers?
We are in discussions with a number of customers, and we have been for quite some time now. Our LeddarVision software platform was developed with OEMs and tier ones and SoC providers. So they all have contributed to making this LeddarVision the most compelling software platform in the industry. And those customers are in different stages of their evaluation cycle. One of them actually has completed, have made the decision that they will use our product in their next generation platform. That's Ficosa. And we have a number of them that are close, and we expect to make further announcements, within the coming year.
And talk a little bit about how you compete with other large auto OEMs out there, and why would they prefer you over the others? What's your differentiating factor?
Yeah, the main competing approach is really coming from Mobileye. They're the market leader in the industry. They actually pioneered the industry with a camera-centric or a vision-centric approach. So they built really good camera systems with a software fully integrated. They've done really an amazing job there. Now, as the industry is deploying where tens of millions of vehicles are using the same, the industry needs a different source. And as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, the market has become more sophisticated. It's not just about convenience. It's not just about safety. It's also enabling the next wave of platforms for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So having a hardware-centric approach is limiting. And so as a result, we have built a software architecture that we believe can work with any sensor, that can work with any processor, and that gives maximum flexibility to OEMs and tier ones to design the next generations of software-ready vehicles. So we think that's quite unique and quite valuable. The next thing to keep in mind is as the vehicle come out of the production lot, with the existing hardware-centric approach, it's out of phase with state-of-the-art safety. It's out of phase with state-of-the-art features and functionality. So having the ability to actually upgrade the software as you go, add functionalities and features as you go, gives an advantage to the OEMs and allows to prolong the life of the platform. So you can envision, Anna, you buy a vehicle today, 2 years from now, with the LeddarTech software, it's a much better vehicle than you've had before just through the upgrade cycles.
Well, most estimates put Mobileye's market share at about 70%. So how do you plan to break into the market?
We don't think that we will be competing with Mobileye. What we think is going to happen is as new architectures become necessary, new designs are all together. So we are competing. OEMs have to make a decision, do they make or do they buy? If they buy a black box from Mobileye. If they decide to buy a complete kit, a complete black box, we're not a competitor to Mobileye. Mobileye will then compete with Qualcomm and NVIDIA. But if the OEM chooses to build a software stack that is layered based on features and functionalities of the next decade that they're trying to address, that's when we are, and there's not that many choices. They either have to develop internally or have to buy through a software company like us. So we think that from a competition standpoint, we compete against a black box if they buy a complete black box solution. But if they choose to build a new architecture and in being ready for the software-defined vehicle, we think that we're one of the few choices out there.
And what are some upcoming catalysts we should be looking for from LeddarTech?
So some of the main catalysts is we're going to continue to, remember I said earlier, the SoC, the processor vendors, car manufacturers, and tier ones start with the processors first. That is the most complex. They make that architectural choice, and then the software is layered after that. So we think that by working early with the SoC providers, the processor manufacturers, to have a software already ported on their hardware, already ported on the processor, ready to be deployed with the OEMs, that accelerate times to market, it accelerate the time to revenue for everyone, and really gives more flexibility to the OEMs in terms of the choices of SoC providers. And so we're going to have more partnerships. We've already announced Texas Instruments, Black Sesame, and ARM. Expect us to make a few more major announcements in the coming months. We also expect that several customers which have been working with us under NDA will make those collaborations more public. So you'll see that that things will start accelerating in terms of collaborations, both tier ones, SoC providers, as well as OEMs. Wonderful. Well, Frantz, do you have any closing remarks for our viewers today? You know, as you can see, I'm quite optimistic and quite excited by the LeddarTech future. We think that we've got great momentum with a lot of tailwind, and in a market that is about to really exploit. And the fact that we have made a conscious decision to leverage our unique AI engine to really allow us to do things in a quite unique fashion. We think that between application AI and the next platforms that we are working on, generative AI, we think that we'll be in a very, very strong position for decades to come. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us on our conference. We would love to follow you along this journey. Please join us again. Thank you. All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be back at the top of the hour with Bioxytran.